guys, it's Julio Ricardo Varela, right on time. Latino Rebels Radio, week 3 of whatever show I'm doing. This is, I'm really glad all the people that have been watching this, like my mom and my siblings and everyone, but I have a special guest tonight to start week 3. She is live from Harlem. Hello, Maria Hinojosa.
What's up?
How are you? Look what I just did. You see what I'm doing? Like, people see us on they see us on In the Thick. You're on Latino USA. I do Rebels. But here you are. You are my guest on Latino Rebels. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. It's long overdue. We have to do more of these. So that's one silver lining, is that now I'll do more of these with you for Latino Rebels Radio. That's how my career started, was on live radio at night from 10 to 1 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Every Wednesday night on WKCR right here in New York City. I created a show called Nueva Canción y Demás. And so live radio, it's something, the radio is on right here in my kitchen and in my bathroom on 24/7. So live radio, and so this kind of radio is like...
It's great. I find it to be like really, because, people that don't, what they think what we do, like we do everything live, but we actually, when we do In the Thick, we're recording and it gets cut. And then when you do Latino USA, like you get scripts and even though you're interviewing, there's cuts. So I love like for me, like it keeps me on edge a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It makes, but listen, before we talk about everything, you want to talk about, like, you've had the last couple, you've been very public about sort of what's been going on with your COVID coping. Do you want to share a little bit of that? Because it's so good to see you smiling again.
So basically, Julio, you were the last person who I was working with as a team, because we went to Jackson, Mississippi, and then soon after we were in Detroit. And then after Detroit, I went to Chicago. And then after Chicago, I was in Tucson and then Los Angeles. All of those, except for Tucson, hotspots. And I was in large groups of people doing public things. And I was on my least favorite thing, airplanes. By then, already you could feel that things were changing in the airports. I wasn't well at the very beginning, and I remember you and we talked about this, and you were like, "Get up and go," and I was like, "You don't understand. I can't do anything." I didn't realize then that I was already sick, because I wasn't that, I didn't have the traditional symptoms. And then there's a whole period of time where you just basically don't feel well, but you don't really want to say anything to anyone because it's too terrifying. And then after basically 10 days of feeling that way, that's when, and also, okay, to be honest, because we're very real. We didn't get into this level of detail on In the Thick, but I didn't have a thermometer. Right. I didn't have a thermometer.
Yeah, tell me, like, you didn't have a thermometer. So why? Because it's not something you think about, right?
mean, my kids were grown; they were in college, and Herman and I, knock on wood, we're very healthy. We're very, very healthy, and so a fever of any note, we would have gone to get a thermometer, but it was like, it never, if there was a slight fever, it was gone within 24 hours. And so whatever, it would be just like, forgetting to buy a thermometer. And then we needed a thermometer, and Herman couldn't find one. And finally, after, about more than a week of not feeling, and just doing that very Latina thing, which is like, I feel okay. Put your lips on my forehead, right? Do I have a fever or not? And then just realizing, like, we need a thermometer, and they do have them. You have to ask for them behind the counter. And that's when I started taking my temperature, and I was like, no, you're carrying a fever. And it was a low-grade fever, but it explained everything. My body aches. And then one of the things that you and I have talked, I mean, I just couldn't get out of bed.
Right. Yeah. And you weren't yourself. You weren't yourself.
No, I went crazy. Poor
Yeah,
Julio. Thank God that you and I are good colleagues and that we
we're
care
good.
for each other and that we put up with so much craziness and we give each other so much space. But poor Julio, in many ways, you were the recipient of. You actually witnessed. You were probably saying, "What is going on with her?
Right.
She's like not acting herself." And now I realize that that's part of what was happening. And so it's a very strange, insidious thing. And I'm I'm very worried because nobody likes to be sick, and I was sick for about 3 weeks.
Mm,
Um, I'm just very worried for people who are sick right now, and I just, I got a lot of support, writ large, or individual people calling me or sending, and that really does help. You really are in
right.
a battle against this virus. And I didn't get tested. Most of the people who I know who present all of the classic symptoms have not gotten tested. Like I was in so much pain. You want me to go to a hospital to get tested? No, no, no.
That's. But you're feeling fine. You came back today to come back to In the Thick. You were just amazing. Guess who just commented already with a little heart emoji was Jonathan Garcia, board member of Futuro Media. So
Oh,
little heart emoji. My mom Barbara, who you met, says glad you are better because she was
hi,
asking about
Barbara.
you.
Glad
So
you're better. Glad you're staying at home,
I
Barbara.
know. I
I'm
told
gonna
I
sip
told
some of my
mom.
tea for that.
Yeah, mom. I told Maria, mom, that I was very happy that you stopped working in the clinic in the Bronx and you're home and you're good, and she's healthy and she's good, Maria. But tell me, like, before, because I do want to get into part of the reason, I want to get into like your book too, because your book's coming out. I know a lot about how you got there, but just the last couple of weeks thinking about sort of the untold stories of this crisis, being in Harlem, seeing it. I mean, I saw you on Twitter. Like I said, I know when you weren't yourself, but you kept trying, because the journalist in you was like, I am going to do the clapping. Because I am going to film this. And you were sick. And then when you finally like got out of it and you were very public about it, which I was like, wow, which is that who you are. But what are the untold stories for you? I mean, because that's the part where I'm kind of like, we talk about it on In the Thick all the time, and it just feels like, I don't know, like as a journalist, what's really like sticking
So,
with you?
so here's the thing. Well, I'm a professor. So while I really miss our staff being together here in our offices in Harlem, um, we have a great office. The part of the corporate culture is to try to feel very team workery like. People like to hang out. We've done even hangouts now that we're apart. But separate and apart from that, I'm a professor at Barnard, previously at DePaul. And so the untold stories, really, Julio, are the ones that I'm hearing from my students,
Right.
many of whom are first generation, who are, they are having a really tough time. And their parents are the ones who are continuing to work, or making bad decisions, like having a family gathering or going to a quinceañera, or in one case, an evangelical church insisting that they have mass.
Mm.
Um, and people came out sick from that mass. So, and then
Wow.
the descriptions of what it is to when you cannot social distance, you just can't. There's no place to go.
Right.
There's no place to go. And so the increasing violence and criminality in some parts of the city, even though in general, like in a place like Manhattan that used to be, in the 1970s, it was just like mayhem. It's actually very like, I'm walking in all of the parks to be as far away from people as possible. So
Right.
I'm in the backwoods and it's the safest thing. And yet there are parts like in the South Bronx where I have heard that, desperation, street dealing, a level of insecurity and kind of low-level crime. So I'm very, very concerned. And again, all you need to do is look out the window. Like if I peer out when we do our clapping at 7 o'clock, the people, what you see is the bus, you see cabs, you see delivery trucks, and then you see the guys on their bikes with their hands in their plastic gloves, and some of them have the face masks, and they're delivering food to New Yorkers.
And it's just, and that's what's going on. And then we're supposed to be surprised when the city of New York says, "Oh wow, twice as many cases in Black and brown communities. Who knew?" Like that's the part that and that's a general consistent thing. And seriously, guys, if you're In the Thick fans, we just did a great In the Thick that's going to come out tomorrow with Stephen Henderson and R.L. Nave in Mississippi, Stephen Henderson in Detroit. The two shows that we did, Maria, right, that were live, and we completely, like, just genuinely amazing souls, right? Like, I really enjoyed talking. Like, I love them both. But they're saying it too, the pattern of Black and brown communities, right?
We're nerdy journalists.
Yeah, I know. But, the power, the how this is really impacting POC communities. And I didn't want to say, like, I told you so, but because I don't want to be like that. But at the same time, we kind of all knew this, right? When you think about environmental racism, poverty, essential workers. You just went on MSNBC, finally. You want to talk about, like, I mean, tell me, like, what, because how do you get through that? Because I get frustrated, but then you tell me, like, Julio, just keep telling the story. So how do you get through that, Maria?
Look, I thought about one of the things that manifests when you carry a fever for 3 weeks is that you develop a certain level of paranoia. Again, you and I talked a lot about this, and I'm in the midst of writing about this, but there was a sense of just like, and I'm not watching a whole lot of cable news because I was living it. I was just like, but there was a sense of like, wow, Latinos and Latinas disappeared from the national narrative.
Exactly.
Like in terms of the journalists who are telling the stories, whether they're out there, like disappeared. And you're like, well, you're just paranoid, or you're just, again, a lot of ego. Always you have to do the ego check. And it's like, it's not so much that I need to be on television. It's more that I need to be assured that people like Julio or me or Mariana Atencio or qué sé yo are getting time,
Right.
Maria Teresa Kumar, that this space is getting time and attention. So that's been frustrating. I think in some ways, the fact that very famous people got it so early on, it became almost like, oh, so it's like the virus that will get the rich and famous, and then everybody kind of focused on that, myself included. I wanted to know, how was Tom Hanks, how was Rita Wilson, how was, please, Idris Elba, his wife, how are they? I wanted to know. But at the same time, it was like that was opaquing the stories of people who normally don't get on the news to begin with.
Right.
If there was a story that I could do right now, if there was a story with a camera, and we can't, right? I would ask somebody who works in the ER to describe to me the faces of the patients who they are seeing who are dying. And I'm imagining, again, family members of my students who are Mexican or Latino, over 40.
Yeah.
Super hardworking, and just we're not able to win this particular battle.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's joy in all this, right? I mean, there is joy in all this as we're doing our work and we're working remotely. Your baby, you have a lot of babies. You have 2 big babies now. You have a wonderful son, fantastic daughter, great family. You've written other books in the past, but you just published, I think, to me, just seeing you do this, like this was a labor of, I don't know, this was a labor of, when you say love, because there were moments when you were doing this book throughout the year, Maria, where you were really excited, and then there were moments where it was like, I have to write, like Julio, I have to write, and you got through it. Can you just tell me, like, why write this memoir now? What was the process? Why did this matter to you? Because you definitely decided, I am going to write. I need to change my schedule to write, guys, because this matters for me. And I don't think a lot of people knew that, right? When you were doing this, and then you'd do In the Thick, and then we wouldn't see you for a couple of days, or Latino USA, and then you'd go back and write. I want to hear that process, because congratulations, you're...
Oh, thank you, sweetie. You were right there alongside. Look, the original idea happened because, and you were a witness to this. I went on cable television on MSNBC. It's back when I used to be a lot on prime time. I'm like, that doesn't happen a lot now. It's interesting how that.
I'm on the weekends.
But that's okay. But I was just like, anyway, and so I have this encounter with Steve Cortez, who is a Trump supporter. And I'm like, illegal is not a noun. You cannot use the term illegal, the illegals, to refer to human beings, because illegal is not a noun. So, as you know, Deepa Donde, who is my dear friend and colleague for many, many years, used to work at Latino USA as a producer, and then is now our board chair.
She's fantastic. I'm sorry, let's just take a moment, because she's going to watch this later. I'm like, Deepa, we love you.
Well, Futuro wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Deepa. She's the one who planted the seed. And so then Deepa plants the seed of, you need to write a book. And I'm like, seriously, Deepa? She's like,
I could just imagine. You're like,
the company's good. You should write this book. Illegal is not a noun. And that's how it all started. I had to find a new agent, because my agent, Susan Bergholtz, had retired. And so it was just a very long process, and I thought it was going to be a very short pocket book. And then it ended up becoming more of my story. And then really what it is that there is a lot of spinach with the juju beads. Look, I'm actually eating a gummy.
A gummy, okay.
Gummy, a little sugar. So there's a lot of sugar in this, and a lot of like yummy stuff, and emotional and identity for Latinas, and feminism, and being a mother and a wife and an American and a rape survivor and all of that. But there's also spinach, but it's like good tasting spinach, like sauteed with garlic. But it's
just enough to, like, it's good for you. What is some of the now you got me like on the spinach thing. Like, what? Give me an example of some of the spinach in the book, so people just get a taste.
So, part of it is really tearing back. Why is it so complicated, this relationship with immigrants? Why is it like, what? We don't understand. Like, or you are or you aren't. And so there's a mythology that every country makes, and the narrative around who they are. And the narrative is created by the people in power. And so the narrative goes that we love immigrants, but actually, policy-wise, we don't. And so the very first, I think one of the things that impacted me and sits with me in a very profound way is the ties and relationships that I was able to make. There's one that's very big. I don't really want to reveal too much. But there's a big reveal at the end for me, which is basically this relationship to World War II and the gas chambers, and being so that's But the one that I think still always sits with me is finding that I'll ask you the question: who do you know? Who do you believe? Were the first people ever excluded by law from coming to the United States? Not people who were deported, but rather you cannot come here by law. Who were the first people that happened to?
I'm gonna guess the Chinese, but I might be wrong.
But what specifically?
What do you mean? Like, what's the Chinese Exclusion Act? Or
is that what you're talking about?
yeah, but I might be wrong.
Actually, it begins with the exclusion of Asian women.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you've told me this. I
So
remember. And when was this?
So Chinese Exclusion Act. I have to really get my dates. So I can't remember if it's 84 or 86.
Yeah.
But the first laws are actually like in 82, I believe, and they are to exclude women.
Wow.
And so for me, it's like that's my mom. The women that they were excluding, that the American history books, their narrative says, oh, they were prostitutes. No, you're telling us that they were women, sex workers. They were, and that's why they were being excluded. No, they were women coming to be reunited with their husbands and to start their version of the American dream, and you excluded them because of your racism. And so for me, there's another big part of this story, which is the story of the Vietnamese refugee experience, because I grew up with that.
Yeah.
And, one of my best friends is Vietnamese. I actually have a student who's Vietnamese. So this is a very big part of the story also. So there's a lot of history that I'm gonna take permission from Raul Castillo, who I don't know if he's given us an official blurb, but he's the actor and he was the first reader. And when he finished reading the book, he said, I feel like I'm armed with information now.
Wow.
So that as opposed to like, oh my God, Maria, your story is so dramatic and so like really juicy. Wow. He was like, I'm armed with information. I was like, yes. And I really want to give credit to my editor, Michelle Herrera Mulligan.
She's amazing.
Who
a friend.
is with Atria Books, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster. And this was her, she fought for me to come to her publishing house with her. It was one of her first books. And she really is a visionary. So I'm very, very thankful to her and to my agent, Adriana Dominguez. And
all strong Latinas. Here's a perfect example. When we were talking about, we were talking about the American Dirt experience earlier, pre-COVID, which seriously, all you Latino USA fans, if you haven't seen it, I think everyone's listened to it, but we did talk about it. And one of the things that I told you, this is like, you have a Latina author, a Latina editor, and a Latina agent. And that to me is like, I'm going to be honest with you, like, that's so rare in New York publishing, that combination. And I think, I've read part of the book. I'm not going to reveal much. People need to pre-order it. It's coming out in September, and Maria, we're gonna do more of these. But I thought that was super unique, Maria. Like, here you were, like, when we're like, oh, how are we infiltrating, New York publishing? And I'm like, there's 3 Latinas already doing it, right? And it's coming out in Simon & Schuster, and right? I mean, that was kind of cool.
Very cool. I feel very, Latino USA just did a big episode on intuition and trusting your gut. And I really feel like this book took a long time. And I'm not used to deadlines that go on for so long.
I know, you were like, I'm just going to reveal a little bit. We were at Harvard last year, and I remember you were writing your draft, and then all of a sudden you were like, I gotta do this again, or whatever. Just something that affects. Like, I just started. It's like here the process. You were into the process. Like, you were.
Well, I didn't have a lot of time.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of time, and I worked with. So my personal editor, the one who is like, okay, I'm going to reveal. I would tell her, I'm like, look, I don't know what BDSM is, but you can BDSM me, all right? You gotta be on me every single day. Your deadline is this, because I function really well.
Yeah,
with that kind of a
and you
so
did.
every single day. That's why I knew, Julio, when we were talking about the beginning, like coming back full circle, and you were saying, just get to work, right? And I was like, I can't do anything. I can't do anything. It was because I was sick, because, I wrote most of that book right here at this kitchen table.
Wow. Yeah.
And then later I put up a little desk behind me, which is the entrance of the apartment, so I would have a little bit of separation. But I was writing every single day because I had a job to do. I had to finish this book. And I'm so happy it's done. It was a lot of work. It was also a beautiful experience. I feel like I learned a lot. In particular with my father, I did a lot of beautiful, and a lot of it got cut, by the way, because that's just the nature of the beast. But
welcome to New York Welcome to commercial publishing.
Yeah, a lot of it got cut, but you make your peace with that.
Exactly.
But there was a lot of beautiful connection con mi papá in particular, which I really appreciated. And thank you for being so patient and for giving me because I was like, yep, can't do the show. Not
I know.
Coming to the office.
But you trust, but I also think it speaks to you. I mean, for people that don't know, as we wrap this up, 10 years of Futuro Media, celebrating, I think in February of 10 years, right?
Right now.
Right now, the celebration in the middle of COVID. We're trying to find, I'm with you, Maria. We do all the remote, and we're meeting, and we're trying to function as journalists. And there's a lot of joy in that place. There's reality, there's sadness, there's joy. We're getting through it as a family. But what's so beautiful about Futuro now is that, and this is what I told you, right? And I'm going to just end it with this. It's like you as a founder were able to be like, you know what? I'm going to write a book because my team's got this. And they're going to come back, and I'll be back, and they're going to do amazing work. I love them. They can be free, and I think that's a big, for anyone who creates something, who found something, to have that realization of you know what? We're growing, but this is good. We're in a good place, and this is the time to do it. And so that to me is, founders go through a lot of you know what I'm saying? And I think that's great. So I just want to let you know that.
Part of, I worked in a lot of places that were, in terms of the corporate culture, it was not very healthy. As a young woman, just living through the Me Too experience, and just not having words to describe what we were going through, as a journalist of color, being laughed at, being, essentially ridiculed, microaggressions.
It's on the daily.
Micro.
Yeah.
It was and you just be like, wait, what just happened?
What the hell just happened? Yeah.
You just move on because, life goes on. And so I felt really strongly that part of the corporate culture I wanted to create in my newsroom when I envisioned and we launched Futuro Media exactly 10 years ago. Our first paycheck went out on April 15th. Was a newsroom that was welcoming of the entire person, where it's not I'm going to take you down, but rather want you to bring your whole self.
Yeah, and uplift and collaborate.
Encouraging the journalists to learn how to, fight for their work. And I have to fight for my work.
We all do. We all
do. This is not, I never wanted to have a newsroom where it was she's the boss and it's more about, no, how are we going to do this together, and learning management styles. And I think if you, with you, Julio, you've just taken your vision for Futuro and for Latino Rebels, of course, which was our first acquisition.
I know. I was acquired.
But what a beautiful thing. This is something that you created out of, this moment of desperation and anger and lack of representation, which we're living through now. So I'm really, I'm just glad that you joined the company and that you're taking it to the next level. And I want to do more of this because it's really fun.
Yeah, I hope we got the comments we got. You wait till you see the rebroad. Beautiful comments. You even got a pre-order from Ruben Martinez. So there you go, Ruben. We'll bring you back, Maria. For everyone in this time, we're here. We're trying to everyone's trying to get through it. a little bit of joy. I hope you guys appreciate sort of a break, because I get, for me, Maria, this is a nice break for me, and I'm really glad to have you. I love you. I'm going to wrap the show up. Thank you so much again for being on. Dile adios a todo el mundo, and
Bye,
we'll
you
bring him
guys.
back.
Thank you for everything. Okay, and I'll see you soon.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That is Maria Hinojosa. It went. So, guys, seriously, we'll bring him back. Hey, Elvis, Ulises, you all rock. Thank you. Luis Cruz, you're such a role model, Maria. Yeah, she is. Guys, seriously, I really appreciate you taking the time with Maria. We'll be back tomorrow with Charlie Vasquez to talk about literature in the time of COVID coping. And yes, let me just add this comment from Diane. Maria is doing better, and we love you, Diane. Thanks for being on. But yeah, just share this. This will become a video the moment we publish this on Facebook. If you really like the conversation, just share it with your friends. That's all we ask. So great to see Maria. And we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll be doing Latino Rebels podcast on your Apple Podcasts as well. There's a lot of stories that we're publishing. Also follow Latino USA. In the Thick's going to be fantastic as well. This is what we're doing at Futuro every day. And stay safe, guys. Take care of each other. Be physically distant, but be close spiritually. And